Hey everybody. So it's August, and even under so-called normal circumstances, once it becomes August, a lot of parents start like freaking out because the school year is getting closer. I'm going to give you guys some different things to think about this year as you prepare yourselves, you prepare yourselves and your kids for the coming school year. So whether you live in an area where school's beginning in like a week and a half, or whether it's beginning in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or in some areas, especially up in the Northeast particularly, you're looking at post-Labor Day. So I just wanted to come together with a couple things that I think you guys need to remember. So these are my top 10 things that I think you need to be thinking about and doing and preparing for as you get your kids ready for the school year. So number one, read your IEP. I know a lot of you guys are feeling really overwhelmed, like, I don't want to think about the IEP. I don't want any part of it. It stresses me out even under regular situation or circumstances, but you have to read your IEP. You got to know what's in it. You got to know the things that are in there that your school should have been providing, even in a time of crisis. There is no waiver from the federal government, the Department of Education, to your school system that said to them, oh, don't worry about it. We're in a pandemic. None of that happened. So you need to be aware that you have rights, you have an IEP, there are services on your child's IEP, and you need to know what's in it, like what type of goals they were supposed to be working on, what type of services they should have been getting. Okay, so you got to read the IEP. Number two, create what I call a goal chart. So when you read your IEP, you're going to create like a one-page document that has like the goals, and then you can document and really think about it. I mean, you've been working with your kids, so think about your IEP, think about the goals, and how has your child been doing? I have talked to a lot of parents whose kids are actually making more progress on their goals and their overall learning now that their kid has been at home versus when they were in school. Now, that's certainly not the case for everybody because, some kids really require a team. And a team, yes, is the parent for sure, but it's also a special educator, occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech language pathologist, counselor, psychologist, behaviorist. I mean, some kids need literally the entire team. And when you're a parent, you're a parent, and you got to be a parent first. And you can't be everything and be everything to everyone all the time. So don't stress yourselves out about that. But create that document so that you can look to see, how has my kid done? How have they made progress on the goals? Some of you guys are going to see an amazing amount of progress, and some of you are not. Some of you are really going to see that without the supports, the services that's on your child's IEP, that they are failing to get what's called a free and appropriate public education, which is preventing them from making the academic progress that they were supposed to be making when the IEP was written. The third thing you're going to do is collect and organize work samples. So just like if your kid was in school and you had a concern about how they were doing in school, you would ask for work samples. At least you should. And so it's the same thing at home. You're going to, over the last months, from say March in most areas, all the way through, some of you guys did summer learning as well. If your kid was working with worksheets or coloring pictures or whatever it might have been, doing algebraic equations, make copies of those work samples and have them all together. You want to be able to show what your child has been able to do or not able to do, given the situation that they've been in. Number four, put those service logs together. So on your child's IEP, there should have been, if you're on the services page, on the related services page, should have been, say, I don't know, like speech language therapy. So if your kid gets speech therapy, that was on their IEP. And if they did not get speech therapy through telehealth, teletherapy, or whatever your district is calling it, then you need to document that. So that's why it's important to start with the IEP. So you want to read what's on your IEP. You want to read, language therapy, 3 half-hour sessions a week. Let's say it says 90 minutes a week, 3 half-hour sessions a week on the IEP. And in 3.5 months of time, your kid got 10 sessions. That's not in compliance with the IEP. So you want to keep those service logs. If your kid's in school, they are required to keep service logs. They keep the service logs of when they met with the student, what they did, for how long it lasted, and they have to, of course, document progress on the goals that they're working on. at home, I encourage you to keep service logs. That's how you're going to have the data, the documentation that you need if you're going to go to your school and say, my child did not receive a free and appropriate public education, and there was not so much compliance with the IEP. So you want to have that stuff all together. Number 5, put together and make copies of any type of communication that you had or didn't have with your school system, your teacher, anybody that you might have been dealing with as far as your desires, concerns, successes with your child and teaching your child at home. And the reason for that is I have a lot of parents who really spent a lot of time trying to communicate with their schools through emails, because we knew there was nobody actually sitting there. So through emails. And sometimes the emails would go ignored for days. Sometimes the response was, I'll get back to you on Friday, and it's Tuesday. And, parents are not, in general, teachers. And it's really hard to wait 4 days to have a response on maybe a question that they had about some academic concern and, some type of teaching strategy that they were using on Tuesday. So you really want to have the documentation again about where were the shortcomings, what was happening, or the good stuff, right? How great, the communication was between yourself and the staff at your child's school. Okay. Number 6, I am hoping that many of you, if not all of you out there, have been taking video with your phone of your kids during the learning process. I know some parents that, they carve out a time every day, and it doesn't have to be much time. It could literally be a half hour, 45 minutes a day, when their child is working on, say, the academics that are in their child's IEP. Because, your IEP should include all kinds of stuff, right? Social, emotional behavior, communication, independent functioning, all good stuff. But for the academic piece, so reading, writing, and math, I'm hoping that when you guys have been sitting with your kids and teaching them at least a little bit of time, you're having your phone collect some video. And that's like on both sides. So if your kid is a rock star and they are just rocking it and you are so pleased and it's just amazing, you want to capture that on video. If your kid is basically getting nothing out of online learning, like it's a borderline joke for your child, I would be videoing that too. I think that video these days, as we can see like all over social media, is it can make it or break it in a lot of situations, and it certainly brings a lot of information forward. Sometimes that information is positive, sometimes that information is not. But take those files. So let's say that you've been videoing throughout the time, and get those files, those video files together, and put them in a folder on your computer so that you can really easily get to them. You can go over them, and then eventually you can share them and show your next teacher. Because chances are really good that if you guys are doing online learning, or if your child's going to be one of those kids that do go back to school, that teacher's not going to know them. They're not going to have had the time to really see your kid in action in the school building, and they don't know who your kid is. They don't know what their potential is. They don't know what their challenges are. Get those videos together, but you want to keep them short and sweet. Teachers are not going to sit there and watch an hour of your kid, using a pencil to get some thoughts on paper. Okay, short, sweet. I would keep the full video to really like 3 minutes if you can. It's pretty easy to edit videos down. There's free software online. If you can't do it, then literally just go into your phone and you can use the resources on your phone to just kind of chop it down a little bit so that they're bite-sized pieces. So if you don't know how to edit and bring different pieces of film together, that's okay. Just bring it down into each piece, like maybe the first piece is on math, a math lesson. And so maybe have that be 20 seconds or something like that. You want to just have them all together, because when you're in a moment and you want to be able to share information, you don't want to go looking around everywhere and, oh my gosh, did I delete that? Is it here? Is it on my computer? Is it on my phone? You don't want to deal with any of that. So it's just good to get it all together now while we have a little bit of time before school goes back into session. Number 7, data. You want to be keeping data. And like I've kind of been talking about for the first, 6 of these, it's really about getting things together. Now, I did have some, in the spring, some parents report to me that their teachers were asking for the data on their IEP goals. So if you have a school that is requesting data from you for mastery, consideration of mastery on their IEP goals, make sure that you say that this data is based upon your work with your child. Because frankly, I mean, if somebody's going to get credit for mastery of goals, it should be you. I mean, it should be anybody who's actually providing the instruction. And in general, kids have not been in school. So you want to be able to document that on there. You want to collect the data, but you don't want to necessarily hand it over. But as we come into a school year, if you're happy and things are good, then you really need to do anything with it. But I still encourage you to collect it. But if you're not, and you're really concerned that your child has not been getting a free and appropriate public education, whether now or before, because some of you guys, like I said, your kids are doing amazing now. And you're looking back to like thinking, why did I have them in school? Because they weren't making progress for a year, 2 years, and all of a sudden he or she's home with me for a few months and they're amazing. Maybe they weren't getting a free and appropriate public education before. And you're gonna wanna use the data to talk to the school and say, you know what we were doing before was broken. And I've got lots of evidence of that. And I want things to be better when I bring my child back. I don't want to go back to the way things were. So you want to have the data. Number 8, if you are continuing to teach your kid at home, you want to make sure that you have that consistent learning plan established. So that might mean a certain time of day that you're going to do learning, a location in your house, because like most of us that have kind of transitioned into working at home, we have a spot, right? We have a desk that we sit at, we have a phone that we use. We're kind of regimented creatures, and kids are the same. So you want to make sure that you have all that kind of established so that the structure remains as much as it can be. And if you had structure happening for you in the spring, I encourage you to keep that going into the fall. Now, if you didn't, and you were a parent that was like, you know what, I'm not dealing with homeschool, I'm just like not doing this, I'm just gonna like hope for the best. And because they're going back to school in August, September, and I'm just not. Well, if your kid's not going back to school, I really don't think that you can continue to think that things are just going to turn around. Yes, there are many areas that are saying, oh, the kids are going to go back to school in some say October, some say January. Some are saying, we don't know if we're going back to school this school year. So I would not just hang out and hope for the best when it comes to this. And many parents are pulling their kids out of public school because there are some private schools that are, bringing in the social distancing, bringing in the safeguards, and they're starting school. So, there will be some parents that will opt for the private, will opt for the virtual school that your state may be offering. I live in Florida, so there's Florida Virtual School. There are options for families other than just hoping for the best and waiting for their school system to open the doors. Number 9, for those who are going to school. So whether that is you've found, I don't know, a little private school or big private school that your child is going to be going to, or in some areas, kids who have IEPs, who have the more significant needs and challenges, there are some school systems that will be opening their doors to specialized instruction or the intensive programs. So if that's your kid, and your kid is going to actually get to go back into the schoolhouse for their learning, the regular things that you need to do to get them ready really need to be in place. So social stories. And remember, your kid has been out of school for months. So we have those kids who are kind of naturally challenged by going back into the new school year after a summer. But think about it, they've been out of school for all this time. So you need to get those social stories. You need to start structuring things. Get them now, like August is here. Get them into the regimen of going back to bed at a certain time at night and waking up at a certain time in the morning so that they're ready for school. relook at what time you're doing dinner, because I know at my house, the dinner time has moved way late. So if dinner time needs to be moved up again, you need to start moving it. You need to, get those kids ready, get them back into routine, create those visual schedules, and start preparing them and talking about, oh, we're going back to school, and school might be a little bit different. We're going to wear masks, and maybe take them to the grocery stores, where they have to wear the mask. Help them to understand, especially when they're in a building, that they need to keep the masks on. I really feel for kids, because you know what? I mean, kids are kids. They're messy. They're kids. They're messy. They're touchy. They get in other people's space. And, what we're asking them to do is not act like children. And I have big concerns for that. So I don't really know, if my kids were little, I really don't. I don't know that they would go back into a school building, because I really treasure childhood, and the things that we're going to be asking our kids to do are just things that we're asking adults to do, and the adults are struggling with it. So it's an issue. So if you plan on having your kid go back into a school building, really, practice. Help them getting used to having these things on their faces. Help them, understand as much as possible about touching others. And, but create those visual schedules, create those social stories, which I am very passionate about. I mean, for my son, they were gold. And so create those social stories, get them back on a routine. And I think that'll be really helpful as you look into the new school year. And number 10, put in writing any concerns that you have over the last several months or over the upcoming school year, how you think your child has received a good education or have not. And again, it goes back to documentation. If it's not written, it's as if it was never conveyed. Do not depend upon a phone conversation that might have lasted for a minute with you telling your school that you're not happy and you don't think your kid is learning. That didn't happen. You need to put your concerns in writing. There is something called a 10-day notice, that if you want to find a private provider to basically provide education to your child, you can create this 10-day letter, which will then kind of let them know that, I'm going to get a private provider and I'm going to expect you guys to pay for it. I'm going to put the letter it's from Wright's Law. So if you go to wrightslaw.com, you can see the letter there, but I will also share the link for that letter on my website, stacyhoagland.com, so that you guys can see that letter there. I think that in Pete's office did a really great job of putting that type of letter together so that you guys can kind of see what that's all about. So good luck. I wish all of you guys much success in even considering what you're going to be doing this school year, getting your kids back into the building or continuing their education at home. Best wishes, blessings for everyone. And if you need anything, just let me know. I'll do all that I can. All right, have a great one.